Yes.
When we do public comment, can you turn the camera or do you need your computer?
I can turn it. Yep.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Five here, if anybody needs it, I don't bite.
We're running around.
I call this meeting of the Lake Country Classical Academy to order at 6:02 p.m. on January the 21st, 2026. In accordance with Wisconsin's open meeting law, the required public notice of this meeting ran on the Saturday, January 17th issue of the Waukesha Freeman and was posted on the LCCA website and at the front entry doors of both school campuses. The LCCA mission is to train the minds and improve the hearts of young people through a content-rich classical education in the liberal arts and sciences with instruction in the principles of moral character and civic virtue. Please rise and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, attendance. Please note that everyone is in attendance with Randy being remotely, and we will be hearing from him. He's on the computer and on the speaker. All right, agenda and minutes. We have the minutes from the last board meeting to approve. There were 4 attachments sent to us that we
have the minutes from the November 25 meeting, the minutes from the December 1 meeting, the December 30 meeting, and the January 6 meeting. Yeah, so I think we can, I would move to adopt all 4.
At once? Okay. So, are you making that motion?
Yeah.
Okay, second?
Second?
Discussion? Hearing none, we will go ahead and vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, we will
Did we get
adopt.
Randy on that?
Randy?
That was an aye.
Okay.
We'll adopt the minutes from the previous meetings. Okay? All right. The response to previous comments is the next agenda item. We're going to go to,
Randy?
That'll be me.
yeah, citizens forum, right, Randy? I think I'm just looking.
Yeah, so
Yeah, go ahead.
okay, so you can hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I know we've had a lot of comments and obviously a lot of things have happened since our last meeting. So I just wanted to use this time to go over a timeline of events. And I just want to make sure that everybody's kind of in the same starting point, know how this played out. And then I will also, in the president's report, I plan on answering some of the common questions that we're getting from, multiple places. So I'm just going to start by going through a timeline of events and just make sure everybody has that context before we go into the public comments. So first, I know I think there's still a lot of confusion and misinformation that remains out there. And I hope this provides some clarity at least. And I want you to understand that I know some of you are asking for details and, for legal reasons and out of respect for Margaret, there's limitations on how much information I can provide in a public meeting. So I'll go through this timeline. So I'm going to start with August 18th. So in August, the board identified some concerns at the administrative level relative to the parent and school community communication and generally the increasing workload at the administrative level that increasingly required diversified skill sets. So in light of those concerns, board members began to consider whether there were better ways to do business while maintaining the current high quality of education that LCCA provides. On October 24th, we arranged a call with Katie O'Toole from Hillsdale, expressing some of our concerns. Now, some of those dated as far back as 2024, and none of those concerns were related to LCCA academics, but rather the administrative structure along with the workload. So on that call, Katie suggested that the board meet in a duly noticed meeting to discuss the concerns and a path forward. We expressed concern over the perception such notice might create, given Margaret's role as the leader of the school. The board wanted to avoid speculation, but administrative and management concerns necessitated the discussion by the board as to how we could address and resolve these concerns. So we followed Hillsdale guidance and then scheduled a closed meeting on 11/19. On 11/14, Ellen and I had a meeting with Margaret to let her know that the discussion would occur in closed session on 11/19. So on 11/19, we had that closed session. We discussed the previously mentioned concerns. This was the first time we could discuss as a board due to public meeting law. And although consensus was formed at that meeting, we felt this topic was too important to make decisions after just a single discussion. So we deferred any final decisions consistent with Hillsdale guidance to be cautious, when making such decisions. Now, around that time, an idea occurred to me. Other Hillsdale member schools had implemented an executive director, CEO type structure. And I thought perhaps that would be a good compromise that could address the board's concerns while keeping the current academics that seem to be working so well intact. So the executive director CEO position was designed to operate the business side of the school, not the academic side. So a dual reporting structure was proposed where both the executive director and the head principal would report to the board. On November 21st, this idea of a modified structure was presented to Margaret for feedback. On November 22nd, after contemplation, Margaret stated her concerns with the dual leadership role structure being contrary to Hillsdale guidance. November 25th, the executive director idea was shared with Hillsdale in a meeting with Katie O'Toole and her team. Hillsdale cautioned against a dual reporting structure, thus a single reporting structure was then explored with the executive director reporting to the board and the head principal reporting to the executive director. So having a single rather than a dual reporting structure was based on Hillsdale guidance. One reason we chose that the executive director report to the board rather than the head principal is because that model was in line more with a public school model where you had a superintendent and school leaders such as principals. December 1st, a special board meeting was held. The executive director position was discussed and approved. On December 4th, Randy had a phone conversation with Katie O'Toole. She acknowledged the concerns that the board had were valid. She told me that one of the main reasons she didn't like the idea of an executive director was that when other schools implemented that structure, it was an excuse just to push out the head principal. I assured her that was not the case, that the board desired to keep Margaret in the role of head principal, given her strength in academics at LCCA. Katie asked that I let her know when an executive director candidate was identified so she could talk to them. I assured her that I would do that. December 22nd, I notified Katie O'Toole that we identified a candidate and I was letting her know to fulfill my promise. On December 29th, Katie O'Toole finally responded. I told her we found a date we were all available, January 6th, and I explained that it was going to be very difficult to find another date in January where board members could meet, and that we had important events coming up with enrollment, faculty contracts, and the gala on the horizon. We did not want to head into this period where uncertainty where teachers, donors, and parents had to make big decisions, not knowing who would be leading the school. Hillsdale declined such a meeting. Thus to say Hillsdale was not given the opportunity to meet with John is not accurate. Hillsdale had the opportunity, but they did not seize it. December 29th, also Ellen and I met with Margaret to let her know that John Wu was the candidate we were putting up for vote, and presented her with a proposed contract amendment to reassign certain duties in her contract to allow for her to focus on academics. she would remain head principal in charge of the faculty and all things academic. At that meeting, we assured Margaret that the board wanted her to stay. December 30th, since Hillsdale declined to talk to John Wu before the January 6th meeting, I emailed Katie John's resume along with bullet points indicating why we felt John was a strong candidate and why getting this done now was important. Given the previously mentioned important dates on the horizon, I felt that keeping the January 6th meeting and having Hillsdale talk with John after, if he was approved, was the best of the imperfect options available. Having the opportunity to work with John the past year and understanding his views, the board was confident that any objective assessment would be received positively by Hillsdale. January 4th, the board was disappointed to learn that Margaret submitted her resignation. Subsequently, it was called to my attention that Margaret was not clear that John's role would not likely be permanent, and there was a potential for her to return to her previous duties if some modifications could be made. January 8th, Randy sent an email to Margaret letting her know that he wanted to get a communication out to LCCA families announcing the change and wanted to first confirm that understanding there was a potential path for her return didn't alter her decision. She responded on January 9th, confirming her decision to resign. So some of you have asked, how can the board be qualified to make this decision when they have no educational background? Well, we aren't professional educators. What we do have collectively with this board is extensive experience managing people. And 6 out of 6 board members voted to approve the creation of the executive director position and John Wu to fill that role. The issues at hand had nothing to do with education. I mean, if we were telling Margaret how to teach 2nd grade, that would be an entirely different story, but we were not. In the president's report, I'll answer some of these other lingering questions that continue to arise, and I'll open up to the board, other board members to comment. So understand that change is never easy, and especially for those who are comfortable with the way things were. But after today, we need to close this chapter and move forward. Every minute we spend rehashing the past is a minute we could have spent progressing. And I feel like some observers have reached a verdict before the trial even started here. And if you fall into that camp, please keep an open mind and at least give this a chance before deciding it won't work. I know when I've been in similar positions in my life, I've sometimes come away pleasantly surprised. I just didn't understand yet that I didn't know what I didn't know. So before we go into public comments, I'm going to tell you the questions I'm going to answer just in case it impacts your comments or what you want to say. So the common questions we're getting that I'll answer after public comments are, is John Wu living in Portugal? How can John Wu do this job? He has no educational experience. Why was this decision so rushed? Will LCCA remain committed to the Hillsdale member model? Is LCCA being downgraded to candidate member school status, and what does that mean? Why did you ignore Hillsdale guidance? And will Hillsdale be involved in the search and selection of a new head principal? So I'll answer all those questions. So just want to give you a heads up on that as you're thinking about your public comments. So that's all I had for now.
Thank you, Randy. Okay, well then, I guess we'll just jump right into the public comments. Anyone who wants to speak, the forms are up here, especially for any latecomers. If you need them, feel free to fill it out and just hand it to anyone on the board. But first up is Mark Van Alstyne.
Mark Van Alstyne, yes.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. Yeah, reading's that. It's tough. Good evening. My name is Mark Van Alstyne. I am calling for public accountability and transparency. This is the first time that I've heard any kind of timeline or story from the board, and I appreciate Randy's efforts on that end. But it would have been helpful to have some of this information sooner. In the creation of the executive director position, the board didn't heed input from Hillsdale. I understand Randy's points. Regardless, you did what you wanted to do in the time you wanted to, and ignoring the expert advice and inviting the real likelihood of turnover, especially starting with the principal's resignation. In theory, we can survive for a time without a principal, but we certainly cannot survive without LCCA's teachers. There have been many people sharing open records lately, and one of the important pieces that I saw was a letter to the board from the majority of the teachers. And their tone and message is clear, that they don't support this direction. How can you as a board justify your actions when they go against 2/3 of the faculty, a vast number of these parents that are here tonight, and Hillsdale? What's the plan to move forward if any number of the teachers leave? What is the goal in all of this? To show that you guys know better and that you have the power? How can you think this is good for the short and long-term health of the school? If you get your way and teachers leave, we're all left with nothing. The teachers came here for a purpose, and many came here with or because of a certain leader. By compromising the principal's standing and authority at LCCA, the teachers are now left with questions and uncertainty. I brought this to the board in a letter months ago, and I hope you guys have had a chance to read that by now. And I believe it's the most threatening to the life and sustainability of LCCA. Without these teachers, we don't have classrooms to send our students into. Without a leader they know and trust, the teachers will not stay. And all the effort to start, nurture, grow, and sustain LCCA will be for nothing. Let's consider the ones who are in these very classrooms and hallways that give of themselves daily to love, direct, guide, and shape our children. I hope these teachers know and feel our love and support through it all, because they make this place what it is, and they help develop our kids into who they will become. But they need our support. They need backing and alignment from the board and administration, and alienating or even compromising our relationship with Hillsdale compromises their support. The board's disregard for the teachers, who are the backbone of the school, threatens the school's existence. I implore the board to change your ways, be honest in your actions and dealings, and be more forward-thinking, considerate, and humble for the sake of the entire LCCA community, or else there won't be a future here. Thank you.
Thank you. I forgot to mention that the time allotment per speaker is 3 minutes. So in case you see up here that's what's going on up here. Thank you, Mark. Okay, next speaker is
Willie Walker, perhaps? Sorry, I also
Was
have
that Walker?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Oh, so I'm sorry.
No worries.
Alex, sorry about that.
Right. Dear Board and LCCA community, in the board docs today is a letter from the teachers, a vote of no confidence. A few days after the letter was sent to Mr. Godsell, we received an email from him containing the letter as you see it now, redlined with his responses to our concerns. These responses, however, failed to address the most pressing issue. The real point of our letter is this: our membership with Hillsdale is what allows us, as teachers, to do what we do, and it is now in a tenuous position. Without their training, feedback, and constantly accessible support, the school would have inconsistent classrooms and pedagogy and unfocused course progression. They provide unity. Without their support, we could not live up to the potential the curriculum provides. Full affiliation with Hillsdale is paramount to our performance. Those of you who love the teachers here, let me assure you we cannot do what we do without Hillsdale. Though we are technically still a member school until April 10th, our status is a name only. Their support of us is in grave jeopardy. To clarify, the following acts of the board are contrary to the explicit recommendations of the Hillsdale K-12 office and have been cited by Dr. Katie Toole, the head of that office, as the reasons for our demotion of status. First, creating the executive director position as a functional leader over the principal by having that person be the only reporting to the board. Second, by filling that role with an unvetted, recently resigned board member who they did not have time to vet due to the change occurring over a break. Dr. O'Toole also said on January 13th in an email to Mr. Godsell that, quote, given your tone and messaging over the past months, and most recently about our own office, Hillsdale will likely decline to continue an affiliation with LCCA, end quote. Board of LCCA, we speak not to your intentions, but to the reality of your actions. Your words have confused the truth, and your actions have jeopardized the school. A demotion, restructuring, and hiring, all done without prudence and the experienced guidance of Hillsdale, put us in continued jeopardy. Nothing but rewarding this course can demonstrate a true commitment to being a Hillsdale member school in word and in deed. A commitment on which our school is dependent, on which us teachers are dependent. We ask that you redress the cause of our demotion to reinstate our status as a full Hillsdale College member school. That alone can restore our confidence in your leadership. Thank you.
Karen Sharkey.
Hi, my name is Karen Sharkey. Some of you know me. I was a first-year family. My family was living in Wauwatosa at the time that the school started. We actually moved. We drove 3 hours a day for the first year and a half, and we moved here to Oconomowoc so that our son could continue to go to school here. I pulled my son last February due to continued concerns that I had seen over the course of the 3.5 years of time that we had been here. At the time, there was a board that had leaders who were not listening to the parents who were bringing up very real concerns. Their concerns were being silenced, they were being dismissed and denied. One of the teachers at the school actually put on Facebook in 2021 a quote by Voltaire that said, "If you want to know who rules over you, just look for who you are not allowed to criticize." That was what the parents were experiencing for so many years. I would like to personally first thank you, Randy, for the wisdom, for the humility, and for the strength that you have shown in truly listening to parent concerns and trying to find a solution that can move this school forward successfully. In the light of where we are today, I feel slightly confused because as a parent, Hillsdale was not the reason why I came to this school with my child. There were many, many reasons. Hillsdale was maybe bottom of the list. Like, it was a nice cherry on top, okay? I also feel a little surprised because what I've heard from fellow friends who still have students here, it seems that there is almost a cult-like following with Hillsdale that seems to be like, we can't teach unless we have Hillsdale. And yet you're all incredible teachers who are incredibly gifted, who when I was here, until I actually saw some teachers' personalities change over time, I saw teachers who truly cared about their students and who had everything that they needed in and of themselves and the education that they had received to do their job well. So I feel a little confused at why this is such a huge problem, because Hillsdale is not the reason why the stakeholders are here. And the students and families are the stakeholders of the school. We've seen school enrollment decline drastically. We've seen all kinds of issues where we have concerns financially for the longevity of the school. And I would just like to say thank you for the prudence that this board has shown to try to move forward in a way that is positive for everyone. Now, personally, if my husband were told that someone would be helping him with 2/3 of his responsibilities and he would be getting the same pay, I don't think he'd have a problem with that. So I find it sad that the administration was not willing to try that out and see how it went. However, this is where we're at, so I wish them well, and I look forward to seeing what you will do, Mr. Wu, with where we're going moving forward.
Thank you. John Holler?
Hi, thank you. My name is John Heller. I have 12 grandchildren here at LCCA, and I wanted to express the deepest gratitude to the board for having the courage to put the school back on the track toward growth and for paying attention to parents and having the students at the top of the concern list. That's what we're all here for. Parents, grandparents, teachers, I hope. We're all here for them, and I'm grateful to you for that and encourage you to stay the course.
Thank you. Tracy Zundel?
Hi, everyone. My name is Tracy Zundel. I've got 4 daughters here. We've been here since the day it opened. My sister-in-law was one of the founding board members, so we've been involved in the school before the doors were open. It's been a tumultuous few years, and if you haven't felt that, I would suggest it's probably because you haven't been coming to board meetings. And if you haven't felt that, it might be because you're new. And we love our new friends that are coming. But those of us that have been here for a long time have seen a lot of great families driven off. We've seen families ignored. I've got friends who are personally severely mistreated in multiple circumstances. And I'm an outcomes kind of guy. And I've watched our wait list, which started so full that we had hundreds of kids. We had a school full of kids and another school full of kids on the wait list, and it's gone. And our enrollment has decreased year after year. And I've sat at these board meetings and I haven't heard anything about those things. Those things have not been talked about. When data's been asked for, it hasn't been shared. And that's been really hard for me to watch. My kids have a great environment. We love the school. But I'm thrilled I hate the contention. I think we're all one big room full of people that ought to be really good friends at all times. And I feel that, and I'm happy to be disagreed with on any of my points except that one. I think we should be friends. But this was hard. You know, this was a hard thing for us as families to kind of survive through. The discussion among our friends is how long do we stay with these things happening, with these levels of mistreatment. And so to have this massive shift, to me, I felt relief. And I see these families that feel shocked, and I feel for them because that's a hard thing. And but for me, what I felt is relief because I feel like the board is taking these things on and willing to address them and deal with them seriously. And the parents have a voice, and we're all here in hopes that it goes well. We have loved being here. We've loved the teachers, but we've had some major concerns, and we're hopeful now. And I just wanted to thank the board for their service and put in perspective the things that I've seen over the last few years and the things that my wife and I have felt. So thank you for being here, and thanks for the time to speak.
Thank you. Next we have Father Bantalimon Gavianis.
Yeah, I'm a Greek Orthodox priest, and I mean, the only thing I would say is I don't know, I'm assuming many of you go to church, probably. So I've seen people come and I've seen people go on my parish. I've had presidents come, I've had chanters come, I've had people, lots of people leave in protest. Maybe some of you have left in protest things as well. And my assessment, the one thing I always say is, you know what? Life goes on, right? We shouldn't make, no organization can't continue without any individual person. Like, actually, today I was talking to my treasurer, we had lunch, and I said to him, in my head I'm thinking, what would happen if you had a heart attack and dropped dead right now, but I didn't say that. I said, what I said, what would happen if aliens abducted you? Because that's more appetizing. And the reality is, we keep going. I mean, if and I have no real opinion on Principal Hagedorn, I really don't. But she could have left. What if she had, God forbid, but what if she had a massive heart attack and died? We'd still be in the exact same position we're in right now. We wouldn't have her, and we'd have to move on. And I know there's wounds. I didn't, and you mentioned these wounds. I wasn't part of those wounds. But I think the best thing we could do is just gather together and say, you know what, we're going to go out and we're just going to kick ass. And I got to tell you, my daughter, she's reading Dostoevsky. My son read The Prince and the Pauper, which actually I just read because he recommended it to me. No joke. Wow, that is awesome. They're not going to read that at your local school. They're going to, God forgive me, I'm going to reveal they're going to be reading like woke stuff. And you're going to be like, what the hell is this? So I don't know. I think the best thing we could do is just say, hey, you know what? I think we can forgive. If we've been wrong. I mean, we've all been wrong. I've been wrong, right? But we forgive. We move on. We say, Lord, help me to forgive if you believe in God. And then we just rejoin. I think that's the best thing we can do. And I know there's bitterness. I know there's teachers that are mad. I know. But you know what? Let's just say we love these kids and we love education. I love education. I love reading. I love learning. I want my kids to love reading. I want my kids to love learning. And this is a great place. I mean, overall, the agenda here is really good. Like, are you going to read The Death of Ivan Ilyich at, Tosa East? I don't want to know if they're reading at Tosa East. So anyway, I'm done.
Thank you very much. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Anybody else?
No, you're
Okay, that concludes the public comment section of the meeting. So next up will be the president's report. Randy.
All right. So I wanted to go over these common questions and address those. And again, some of these things we've talked about in various locations or various times, but everybody's not there. when we talk about them. So since we get these a lot, I just want to address each of these one by one. So first question is John Wu living in Portugal and planning on working remotely. This is probably the easiest one. I started with it. No, John's living in Brookfield, even now has children enrolled in the school. So John will be here. So he is not working from Portugal. How can John Wu do this job if he has no education experience? So John was hired as executive director, but I'll call it the CEO position because that's really the equivalent of what it is. So he wasn't hired as an educator, and I think there might be some confusion because, Margaret resigned at the same time John started. But to be clear, John is not replacing Margaret. She'll be replaced with a new head principal that will be approved by Hillsdale. And the role of the CEO is to gather information, to understand the big picture, and put the right people in the right seats to allow an organization to succeed. So the leadership skills of a good CEO are often transferable between industries. And there's many stories of CEOs that move from one industry to another and succeeded in both. So I think that's really kind of at the root of this is maybe a misunderstanding of John's role, because I think it's maybe a little bit unusual in a school setting. Another common question: why was this decision so rushed? So that's one of the reasons I wanted to go over that timeline. You can see this was really months in the making, and it really wasn't rushed at all. But I think some people are referring to the rushing as the appointment of John Wu that came 5 weeks after the decision was made to create the executive director position. So, as I mentioned, we were heading into a critical period with enrollment, faculty, and donor decisions that needed to be made. We had an ideal candidate step forward who we knew and we trusted and was willing to disrupt his life for the sake of the school. His management skills were proven. He was willing to take a position with no budget impact to the school by agreeing to do this job and taking on the duties of the advancement director, which is a previously budgeted position with no additional pay to do the extra work of running the school. And as you're about to see, one of John's first acts here is to propose giving some of that savings back to the faculty. So we were handed a gift when John offered to step up, and it would have been irresponsible not to take advantage of this opportunity for LCCA and delay this process for months for the sake of appearance. We acted when we thought we found the right person, and that just happened to be very early in the process. Next question, will LCCA remain committed to the Hillsdale member model? Answer is yes. As you've seen now, or at least a lot of you probably in these widely distributed email conversations with Hillsdale, our intentions are to remain a Hillsdale member school, and we have made that very clear in those emails with Katie. It's listed, if you look at our strategic plan that we attach to the agenda each month, it's listed as a primary goal right on top of the strategic plan. It's even a stated qualification in the bylaws that board members, that's one of the qualifications, is that they support the Barney Charter School Initiative and the Hillsdale model. So this has not changed at all. Is LCCA being downgraded to a candidate member school, and what does that mean? I think was it Megan that talked about that, I couldn't tell for sure. So a candidate member school, just to make sure we're all on the same page, this is the way it's been described to us, is a sort of a 6-month probationary period that allows Hillsdale to closely evaluate the school, and it's frequently used when there is a leadership change. So even if Margaret had resigned and there was no executive director, we were told we would have been put in this candidate member status. So the services and resources available to the school remain identical to those offered to full member schools. It's been communicated to us that this is common practice when there's a leadership change at member schools. So you may not be aware of this, but under our existing agreement, Hillsdale already has the right to terminate us at any time for any reason with 60 days notice. So in essence, member schools are always on probation. That means Hillsdale could have outright terminated LCCA in 60 days, but they did not. And I think that can be viewed as a good indication that they want to continue working with LCCA. And in fact, this was communicated by Hillsdale in a recent conversation between Katie and Governor Scott Walker. So we're currently remain a full member school, and we've been given 60 days notice that we will be converted to a candidate member school. I think somebody said April, it'll actually be March when that happens. The only difference will be, that you really notice is this will be reflected on the website and in marketing materials, otherwise business as usual. One thing I just wanted to add here, based on the comment, was that email that Hillsdale, Katie said, whatever her language was, I see terminating this at the end of the 6-month period. First of all, I will tell you that came after that when she talks about tone, there was nothing with tone that was inappropriate, I'll tell you that. But that conversation I had with Katie before she sent that email, I will say it was fairly tense. And my frustration was, I felt like Hillsdale just kept giving floating guidance. And I told her about that, and I don't think she appreciated it. But subsequent to that, if you got the whole email chain, I emailed her afterward, and we, had a nice exchange on that, sort of clearing the air. So I just want you to know that that comment came after a moment of tension. Scott Walker's talked to her since. I talked to her since. So I just wanted to give a little more context on that. And by the way, there was no name calling or anything like that, just strong opinions on both sides. So why did you ignore Hillsdale guidance? So I think this is a big one here. So first, you should know that our member agreement with Hillsdale explicitly states, and I'm just going to tell you exactly the words here, Section 11 in the Best Practices section, the choice of school leader shall be solely the decision of the institution. So we were well within our authority, and in those email chains, you'll see Katie acknowledges that. Second, that same section of the agreement states that Hillsdale should have the chance to interview any head principal, or any person overseeing the daily operation of the school. John Wu does not fall under any of those categories. So in the new candidate member school agreement, the one that they gave us to sign in 60 days, you'll see that the word executive director was added. And I think that demonstrates that it was not clear that John needed to go through the full Hillsdale vetting process until Katie brought that up on December 29th. So at that point, we were well into the process. We found a date where all the board members could meet, which isn't easy, and had the important enrollment faculty gala events on the horizon that I discussed. So we were left in a tough spot at that point and had to make a tough decision. So third, understand that this is called guidance for a reason. If this was required, it would be an edict, not guidance. So Hillsdale allows flexibility to schools to account for the idiosyncrasies of each situation. Hillsdale's an awesome partner, and we've continued to follow their guidance and best practices very closely, and we continue that practice into the future, or we plan to continue that. We view this as an exceptional situation where we felt it was in LCCA's best interest to use that flexibility Hillsdale provides with its guidance, within its guidance-based structure. So, it seems like the impression is here that we went rogue, but that's not what happened at all. We were well within the boundaries of flexibility provided in the member agreement. And again, this was viewed as an exceptional situation, not the beginning of a trend to defy Hillsdale's expertise. Finally, will Hillsdale be involved in the search and selection of a new head principal? Absolutely, and they've actually already been contacted for help in that process. I think, Georgia, we were going to maybe see if other board members had anything to add here.
Yeah, so let's open up to the board. I mean, I would just like to commend you, Randy, on being the steady captain of this ship during this rocky period, and how you laid out everything is really really exceptional. And I know it hasn't been easy, and you have really risen to the occasion and shown what true leadership is when dealing with, you know, a diverse set of circumstances like this. We wouldn't be here without your leadership style, and your humility, I think, is to be applauded and commended, because even in tumultuous and heated moments, you offer such level of integrity and respect that it is something I feel is kind of lost in today's dynamics. So, would anybody like to? Board members?
Yeah, I'll chime in. So, I'm the newest guy. There's a lot of the background stuff that I've only ever heard about, not participated in. But I joined this board for the same reason I think everybody joined this board. And that's because we believe in what we're trying to accomplish. Southeast Wisconsin needs this school. And I get a little emotional about it because it's a difficult thing for a lot of families to figure out where to educate their kids. My kids, before LCCA ever existed, we bounced around from a couple of schools trying to piece together early on affordability, high quality education, and avoiding all the garbage that's out there. We got to have this school. Hillsdale is a great partner. Nobody on this board is questioning that Hillsdale is a great partner. We need to make more progress in creating a single campus. We need to create more progress in growing our enrollment up to the 800 plus level. And that was a big reason for this change. We needed more progress. We needed somebody who had the strengths to help us do that. We think we have that person in place. I wish Margaret would have stayed on. She was great. They had a lot of things. And I think together that would have been an easier path. But we'll find a new principal who's great at being a principal, great at the academics, great at training teachers and working with staff. And I have the utmost confidence in John Wu's ability to help us move towards that campus enrollment mission.
Yeah, I'm not that much newer or older than you are on the board, older probably in real years. So I think a year ago was our first meeting, Georgia, and I don't have kids here. I don't have kids, but I've been involved in education policy throughout my career in the state. And one of the things I left off on the bio is that you had. I was deputy director of School Choice Wisconsin for a few years and worked with them while I worked for the speaker. And that's because I believe so strongly in the parents' right to choose where they can send their child. And because so many kids are stuck going to schools that aren't right for that child for a variety of reasons. And this being a charter school, plus the content of what they teach here and how they teach in the Hillsdale model, is what drew me to see this happen in the community where I live and the people around here. And so it's been a interesting year. We are there's been a lot of change. I think one of the things that we really did try to balance, and I understand the frustration, like when you don't see everything that we do behind the scenes, because we can't do a lot behind the scenes, but Randy and I have had a lot of discussion, and it's difficult to always convey everything because again we have to meet publicly, but I can assure you, like you said, every one of us is committed to the Hillsdale model and making the school succeed. And John coming on is when you're leading an organization and you have the right person at the right time, you act, you move. And that's what we did. And I hope you all do give John a chance, because having getting to know him, his vision for this school, like I remember one day you said, like, I want this school to be the best school in the entire country. And you have a vision for that. And again, I do think it would have been with Margaret combination, but we will find the next educational leader combined with John's other skills to make this the best school in the country. And that's what this board wants, because that's what I know the parents want, and I hope everyone in this room.
I can go next, I suppose. I just want to say that there's a lot of passion in this room and a lot of passion demonstrated in the feedback to the board today and in emails. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that because you guys care. You're here because of that. This is a really important and emotional topic, as Matthew said, and I think that's accurate. For some of you, this is your vocation and calling. For others, this discussion impacts your most important legacy, which is your children. Some of you bridge both of those camps. As a Hillsdale alum, I have friends who are members of this faculty at LCCA. I have friends who are LCCA parents, and I have friends who work at Hillsdale College and are part of the Barney Charter School Initiative. It's been frustrating working through this process, but it's been a worthy effort to try to come out on the better side, on the other side of this stronger. It's a really special thing, I believe, that Hillsdale is trying to accomplish with education. You come to this school because education in this country is largely broken. At some schools that are trying to accomplish what Hillsdale is trying to accomplish through the Barney Charter School Initiative, the mission stops at the library, or the mission doesn't apply when it comes to the science classroom. This is not the Hillsdale way, and what Hillsdale does with education is extremely important. It's my hope and desire and intention that LCCA be closely affiliated with Hillsdale and the Hillsdale Charter School program. I believe that it's the board's intention for that as well, and that's what we, I believe, seek. But I don't want to speak for all the board members on that. We have no plans to abandon the Hillsdale model or end our affiliation with the school. The creation of the executive director role, nor the hiring of John Wu, changed the expectation on the part of the board. Because of that, frankly, it wasn't clear when we made the decision that we were in violation of that. I also want to point out, and I think it's been said, but and there's certainly been some communication on this, but John's role is somewhat limited in scope. His agreement is limited to certain specific roles that are not related to the curriculum or the teachers, and it's limited to 1 year initially. I also want to add that when we had a discussion earlier this week, with Hillsdale, it was pointed out that the executive director role, if we remove eliminate that role as been requested or alluded to, that we would somehow reinstate our prior status as a Hillsdale member school. That is not what was relayed to us by Hillsdale in that discussion. It is my understanding that all schools that have a change at the head of their school are moved to a candidate member status to be reevaluated, which is what was described in some of the communication from Hillsdale. I further expect that the head of our school, our next head principal, will be hired in coordination with Hillsdale, and we will seek to obtain Hillsdale's approval of such candidate. And then I do anticipate that when our next head principal is hired, this new leader will be the primary leader of our school. It's not necessarily our intention that we would have an executive director indefinitely. That'll be necessarily, but that's a decision the board will make as we move forward. At this point, LCCA is vulnerable. We wouldn't be here if we didn't feel that way. All of you wouldn't be here if we didn't feel that way. But we won't be able to make progress toward our mission of training what we view as, our most important legacy if we don't work together. And so I urge you, and for the sake of our LCCA community, to help move forward, to move this school forward. And I hope that we can start to rebuild the trust with our community, our teachers, our parent community, and work together to accomplish something special. And so I think that recognize that we have here is something special. So thank you.
Got about 45 minutes of comments, is that right?
It's a three-minute.
All right.
I'm gonna start with you.
I like to, yeah, please do. I like to start, I want to riff on what Tracy was saying earlier and just take a little different tack. I think 3 months ago, all of us sitting in this room, including everybody at the school, would have agreed that the status quo wasn't acceptable. It just, things weren't working and we had to change something. And the board has selected a path here forward. I want to talk about the boards, specifically Randy, but everybody around this table in light of the letter that was sent, no confidence, and about Randy. We don't always agree. And Randy, with respect to the narrative that you shared, the vote for executive director, it was not unanimous. I dissented from that vote. And I dissented for 3 reasons. One, I thought that some kind of consultant position would have been less disruptive for the school. I felt that committing for an unforeseen amount of time to a lot of money, I thought there was a better way to do that. I wanted to be a little more compressed, and we would have been more in line with Hillsdale guidance. That was like my rationale at the time, but I lost, right? The board voted a different way, and this is important because Randy and I over the years haven't always agreed, but we've always disagreed respectfully. We've always respected each other, and I've never questioned his integrity or his honesty. And looking around the table, I can say that about everybody here, so I wanted to say that. I think going forward, this letter from Hillsdale, candidate member versus member, is a big deal. And and we can rationalize it, and I believe Randy when he says that this is typical, that this happens with the school in transition. I think that's all true, but it's a negative trajectory. And being affiliated with Hillsdale is the reason this school works, period. It's the reason this school works. So getting back to member status, doing whatever we have to do in Hillsdale, I was on one call, others of you have been on multiple calls. One call, they have expressed every ounce of support in helping us get back there. So we need to do everything we can in the shortest time frame possible to do that. And then finally, I just want to shout out to I think the other priority is, that letter that was sent by a good deal of the staff really was eye-opening to me. And I can't speak for everybody, but we have got to have this school behind the board. We've got to. And we've got to do everything we can to get them confident in this board and do everything we can to get them onto this vision. One thing I talked to a couple people about communications, gentleman, or Mark, is it? Mentioned that communications, this is great, but where was it? We need to share the vision. I know John has a vision. He's going to be communicating. We need to put this team at LCCA in a position to win. Hillsdale's part of that. Confidence in the board is part of that, and making sure that we're transparent and that we're sharing that vision and that communications do what they need to do to make sure that that happens. Finally, we need to be assessing this along the way. Is it working? Like right now, the dust is still in the air, and we got to wait for this to settle. But it's incumbent on the board to be strong enough, if it's not working, to make a change. So it's got to be part of the recipe here. Those are my comments.
Very good, thank you, Tom.
Copies of this can be obtained by emailing me.
Wonderful.
Georgia, can I just say one thing?
Of course.
When I said the six out of six, Tom's correct. So Tom had approved the contract and John Woo for the position after the executive director had been agreed on, but Tom did not vote for creating the executive director position. So that was a 5 out of 6 vote. The approval of the contract and John Woo was a 6 out of 6. So I just wanted to clarify that, Tom.
I will not have to cry now. But importantly, you weren't lying. You were going through the narrative. So I think this is a really good example. Assume good intent.
And I would just like to say, when I'm sure everyone in this room has been through situations of uncertainty like this, and when there is change, there is fear. And fear causes all sorts of reactions, but I do hope that, I love what you said about, the partnership on wanting the team to succeed, and that is everyone, that is the community and the parents and the faculty and the teachers and the board and all of us, because at the end of the day, everyone here wants the same thing. So I'll just leave it at that. Randy, do you have anything else you'd like to say before we move on?
No.
To the executive director's report? Okay. Thank you. John, executive director's report. Welcome, John Woo. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Firstly, welcome to everyone in the audience. I report to the board. This report is intended as a report to the board, but it's a public forum. I've had a really great opportunity in the last week and a half to have a lot of conversations with the community, mostly with the teachers and the faculty there. But a very common topic is, and a very common point, is about, as far as this community is concerned, the difference in priority versus what else is out there. And this is clearly an example. So welcome, thank you for being here. I look forward to being able to meet all of you. I will apologize in advance. I'm terrible with names. I will be working very hard to get back at that. Board. Firstly, I apologize. I had a lot of things to learn in this last bit of time, and
it's been like 12 days, correct? It's been just days.
And a lot of different elements. Deciding what I knew it would be good for this report to be different in ways. I wasn't quite sure what is the best cadence and content and such, and I'm still not sure, frankly. So I was late in getting this posted because, frankly, I was still waiting for some things that I wanted to put in, and I will endeavor to do that. And this will be a process, so thank you for bearing with me. So let's begin. Just as a note, because it is a public forum, and one of the things I was thinking about for this report on an ongoing basis is endeavor to use it as an opportunity to really provide information. I know as a parent over the years, there has always been a default to it's a policy or we're following guidance and so on and so forth. And one of the things that always stood out in my mind is it occurred to me, I never really knew what that meant. I didn't necessarily follow up on it, but I didn't know. And I think this might be I'm kind of viewing this as a good opportunity to, when there are chances to help in that we can use this to do that. And I'll touch upon a couple of points we're trying to get in that habit with this. So, firstly, we're going to start. For the board, I recognize that for the broad majority of our community, this will just be words. But I know for you all, you have extensive experience, and I have no doubt that you will be familiar with the concept of an organization attempting to pursue the idea of one firm. People try it all the time. And I am for sure that you all are very familiar with that. It fails often. I am as well. I have always believed that the reason that happens is because ultimately the intentions in those private sector situations, they're usually not driven by anything good, particularly, which is absolutely not the case here. So with trying to change how culture is defined and how we operate, it's always hard, and you always got to start somewhere. So I'm going to start here, and I'm just going to put forth the concept, and I hope that we at least here are able to adopt it in how we speak and how we think about things. I was thinking about this. So there is only one LCCA. There's that popular expression out there. I think it happens a lot in movies. This too shall pass. So let's take a moment and we fast forward to that point, whenever that may be. This too shall pass. If LCCA thrives or it fails, well, it's going to thrive or it's going to fail as LCCA. There is no administration versus board versus parents versus teachers. There will be none of that. It's either we will thrive or we will fail, and that is it. So let's be one on that. And let's go forward on that basis. Again, this is going to take work, and it's going to take time. But we have to start somewhere. Along those lines, one of the things in my pursuit of many things and getting up to speed, there are big things, there are little details, got a lot of things going on. I noticed that there was a time that on the website there were all board member biographies, and I noticed that that's not the case. And I wanted to I thought it was important that everyone understand the background of the members of the board, according to Hillsdale guidance, decisions, strategy, ultimate authority, and say rests in the hands of the board. They do this because, yes, there is one curriculum, there are 34 schools, member schools across all different areas in the country. They are the first to acknowledge that every single community is different, and that's why it is vested in the board. So, therefore, I thought in the whole idea of being one and living that way, it would be good for everyone to know who you are. Because you all, I know from previously working together with you, and working together with you now, you commit a significant amount of time, effort, energy to putting bare your experiences and your skill sets for the better of the school. And I wanted to put that out there because people should know. And the main point, I think it's important for for everyone to understand, is that there's significant experience, not often, mostly, and most of the time, not in education, but in organizations, in large organizations, small organizations, complicated ones, messy ones, and all those are invaluable, and invaluable perspectives. This is a complicated thing. This is not easy. And we're also dealing in, Skylar was mentioning, the most, if not the most, but up there, most important thing for all parents. This is hard. And every level head and experienced mind is good to get a temperature for, and good to work together. So anyway, because the reports have to be posted and it's a public forum, so include your bios in that. We don't need to go over them, but wasn't a big deal. Now, for me, I did not put my bios down there, and there's a reason. I look forward to getting to know everyone. And if anyone wants to know anything, well, let me know. Firstly, a couple personal notes, because I know I'm not usually one to talk about these things. I think my wife and I previously just kind of stayed out of a lot of things. But personal note, yes, family, we're back in Wisconsin. We didn't go back to Portugal. 3 of our 6 kids are re-enrolled in LCCA. Actually, my 4th grader did get the opportunity to attend the Legal Day. He was very excited. They're very excited to be back. They're very excited to be with their friends. For anyone that has children that are in my classes, I'll look forward to future play dates. So about me also. So we're going to be on this journey together, one way or the other. So, as such, if you have, and I've tried to convey this, because like I mentioned, I've had an opportunity to spend a good amount of time with the staff, one-on-one last week and a half or so. And I've been doing my best effort to convey that if anyone has anything on their mind, please let me know. And I will always make time for that. And as such, maybe a little bit different, this is my contact info. This is my personal cell phone. Call me. A little bit of ground rules. Well, actually, first text me. I don't answer calls I don't know. So shoot me a message. Shoot me your name, your kid's name, the grades, and we will find time to And depending on how many you do so, it might take me a little bit more time to get back to you, but please, I look forward to it. Okay. Along the lines of, and I'm going to be kind of jumping around a little bit, they are all tied together in my mind, which, and that doesn't necessarily mean they actually are tied together. Over the years, I have heard as a parent, in working together as part of the board, we would have a habit of saying these things, Hillsdale guidance, policies, so on and so forth. So I thought it might be useful online because I know there's a lot of questions around it. Randy went through a lot of background. There's some of the letters and some of the related stuff, and those are out there in the open. I thought one might be useful. So Hillsdale, as part of what comprises and drives their guidance for schools, has a lot of materials. One of them is the school roadmap, and it is a document. They actually reference it when they speak with us. So it's now posted so that everyone has the ability to read it. I never had the chance when I was a parent. There are a couple things that I thought might have been useful. And so it's up there. And you can read it and go through it. And, we've spent a lot of time kind of working with it. The board has spent a lot of time working with it, with Hillsdale. Just understanding, how their structure and the construct works. And a lot of the things having to do with creation of executive director position and how head principals work and so on and so forth, that is all in there. So please, by all means, read, review it. If there are any questions, I'm sure everyone here will be happy to discuss. And it's been, because every time that we have to kind of go over it and talk about things related to it, we always learn something new. So just a note on that. Okay, so a couple things, what all has been going on and what we've been spending time on. Just a couple of points. We had an all-faculty meeting on January 6th after the board meeting. I finally had a chance to talk to Principal Hagedorn to just touch base. We hadn't been able to do that. And also concurrently on the 8th, they had upon being installed into the role, had the first call with the Hillsdale support team. That includes Dr. Katie O'Toole, the head of the whole K-12 program, Benjamin Payne, who is the head of leader support, Colin Delaney, who's the chief operating officer of K-12, Rebecca Lewinsky, who leads teacher support, I think. I got that title mixed up. And that was the first call. We just talked about how we're thinking about things. It's going to be one event. And as members of the board, I know you have a firm. It has been affirmed to me in the same way. Hillsdale has continued to affirm that their support stays the same, access to resources stays the same, and that's the only way that they phrased it. Following day, got an opportunity to finally sit down and speak with Dr. Wozniak and Ms. Choi, and we talked about how things would be proceeding for the bit of time to come as Principal Hagedorn is transitioning. And just to put it out there, my directive was do as you do and just let me know. And they decide things otherwise. And we're really kind of figuring out what will be the ultimate cadence for how internally we meet and speak about things and touch base on things and so on and so forth. Following Monday, had a follow-up meeting with Hillsdale to actually start talking about things related to how we're going to kind of delve into some of the issues that have been brought up over time for the school. And we're going to get ourselves in a regular rhythm of discussing things. Following that, so one of the things that came out of the faculty meeting that Randy was a part of, Mr. Gatto was a part of as well, and I got a chance to spend quite a bit of time with the entire faculty on the 7th. And out of that, frankly, I think in my mind, this went a different way than I thought. I thought we could kind of kick things off, we could kind of broadly address everyone, faculty, and then parent community, and then figure out how we were going to all work together. think after having that initial faculty meeting, it made sense to me that I think it was worth deciding to spend time with everyone, starting with the faculty, and just having discussions. So we've done that. Last week we focused on West because we took advantage of the testing schedule, and it was easy to just open up the calendar and get everything scheduled, and have the conversations, and then East is a little bit more challenging scheduling wise, but we're making our way through, and it's been a really amazing experience. I'm grateful to all the staff and faculty for being willing to spend the time and for their candor in all directions. And I'll kind of talk a little bit more about what we discussed. One of the things I know, usually this report contains like updates of operations and such. The relevant one, we're in the cycle where surveys will begin. There's an intent to return survey of teachers. There will be an intent to return survey for families as teacher contracts are going to come to bear in March. And we start thinking about enrollments for students. The teacher survey, the staff faculty survey, that was due on this past Friday. So we have a 76 total employee count, at least by way of budget. So some of those are fractional, and we kind of add it together. 67 staff, teachers, student services. So there were 56 responses. 50 said yes, intend to return. 2 said no. 4 were unsure and want to have conversations. So that's just so you are aware. So back to the one-on-one meetings, which I had the chance to do and continue to do so. The first priority is really to make it be an open forum, and anything that was on anyone's mind, feel free to discuss. Ideas, criticisms, advice, concerns, open forum. And I told people that and I told faculty it's not the first time. You don't have to feel pressure to get everything out. Anytime that anyone wants to discuss something, you can feel free to shoot me a message and I will make time for it. But I did try to put a little bit of structure around things to have a common question, a common set of questions. And they were, what is the greatest hope for your students? And what is your greatest hope for yourself in your time at LCCA? Because teachers, with it being in mind that teachers have hopes and aspirations and directions and what they want, where they want their development to go. So I really wanted to find that out. So I'll just give a little bit of overview and some comments that came out that I thought interesting, that were notable. And then a lot of these actually will play ultimately in the future. As I'm going to be asking of you, the board, to have some certain focuses going forward. These things will ultimately touch on those things and things that we have to all work on together. But as a quick summary, without a doubt, broadly passion, care, commitment, wanting to educate our students. This student body, who is of the highest character, and there is no debate. We have many disagreements and many concerns going on across our one community, but there is no debate about that among anyone, including the security officers, who, by the way, I had the first opportunity to meet, and they've been in all sorts of situations. And for all 3 of them, first thing they wanted to tell me was, this place is special. These kids are special. And I think that really speaks to something. So other things, a very reoccurring concern, as not unexpected, concern about the Hillsdale member's school status. There's a lot of fear of change, but there is also hope and excitement for change. And seeing what's next. This was an interesting comment, and it's going to be applicable to something we're covering a little bit. One of the faculty who, as far a broader base of experience, slightly different than others, and has different insights, and made the comment, we got into a talk about enrollment and how that should look like, and he made the comment about in public charter schools, high school programs inevitably run at a deficit. And in order to execute on the standard of high school education that we look to do here, ultimately, you need to have a very large base at the lower school. Inevitably, people along the way, over the years, are going to make different choices because there are options. But you need to have really 4 to 5 classes each at that lower school level to then ultimately arrive to be able to support what would amount to 2 classes of 25 at the senior level. And that was an interesting comment because I know we have talked about, as a board in previous times, about what enrollment should be and what makes sense and when anything is a problem or not. But again, more of that to come. Some other interesting notes from faculty, teachers. There were points brought up multiple times. Standardized tests that we use here may not line up with the curriculum, and so therefore may not be a proper measure. You know, there have been reports over the years about what tests are taken, what are the results. We speak about comparisons, and so that's out in the open. But evidently, there are things that need to be considered, whether or not it actually makes sense to spend time thinking about it. Or we need to think about other objective measures, because ultimately we are, I believe, the mandate is to grow as we go forward, and we have to think about how, and whenever you have an effort that you're trying to grow, you need to measure how well you're doing in that. And with this is education, there are many components of what it means as far as how well you're doing. And so that's going to, I think, warrant a lot more discussion. Other points, and I think this plays to some of the things that are up for discussion or have been brought up by the parent community, but from the teachers themselves, they made it a point. Again, I didn't prompt questions. I said, tell me what's on your mind. Teachers, they seek and desire proper placement, and particularly for math, on both ends of the spectrum. Those that are excelling, those that are having to deal with difficulty. And they want proper placement, they want all to be serviced, and they want every child and every student here to have the greatest chance to reach their greatest potential. I thought that was notable, because I know that's a particular topic that's been out there. There's great hope for one campus. I oftentimes, when these type of situations happen, I throw out the question of, with no constraints, what would you hope for? If you didn't have to think about how you can't do something, what then would you think about? And one campus is on everyone's mind, but for maybe different reasons than I was really ever aware of. For example, I frankly was not aware that in West, teachers are stacked up on top of each other every which way you can think about. I'll show you later for something that we'll get to. But Dr. Wozniak in his office has this square. This is like this board. And it's showing like teachers, the classrooms, the classes, and yeah, we got people sharing offices, and you have 2 teachers in one office, you have maybe 4 teachers like rotating through. It's, there's needs to, I'm not an educator, but I could, from time being a student, I can see that presents a challenge as far as us being able to get to offer the best to our students. So some of these points will help. One of the things that we have talked about for over the years has been, how do we put our community in the best position to offer the best for our students? And I would say one of the things that's come out of these discussions is that there is absolutely a much greater sense of urgency to do that. And but these are drivers, again, I didn't know about it. I don't think all of you are aware of it, and I think many, frankly, parents in the community are aware of things. And that's a big part of what we're going to be working on. It is really the articulation of the explanation of what it is that we need to have happen. So anyway, okay. So a question that I think everyone wants to answer to, and just to be clear, I'm not going to have a lot of answers today. There is no specific plan. I've talked about this with many. I've always found whenever uncomfortable situations happen, everyone wants a plan. Everyone wants a checklist of things to do and work on and right then and there. The only thing that ever happens when you actually do that is that a minute later, a week later, whatever it may be, everyone is there then unhappy that you had a plan because they didn't have any buy-in into it. And so therefore, that's not going to work either. My objective is that because we are one community, and this is one LCCA, we're all collectively going to work on what the actual plan is going to be. Because this is complicated and this is hard, we are not going to snap our fingers and all of a sudden it's all going to work. It doesn't work that way, it's not going to work that way. I'm not capable of doing that, and most aren't. But we have to start somewhere. So, at least I'll pave the path to begin as to where we're going. So, here's what it comes down to. Okay, LCCA, and I'm going to tie this together with what Hillsdale talks about and how this is supposed to work. We are one community, and what we need to decide and be able to clearly communicate to everyone are the outcomes that we are looking to achieve. And in accordance with Hillsdale's own guidance for its charter schools, that is the duty of the board. The board determines what those outcomes are. So we need to do that. Now, again, along the lines of we are one community, we will do that together. In the past, I believe, in my time in working together with you as a board, we've always kind of said to ourselves, we always felt constrained because we have this open records thing. For everyone collectively to be able to work together, hash something out, it has to be in public. That only happens once a month. Everyone's got different schedules. And then when we have meetings, like we don't have endless time. And if we try to go longer, we're kind of losing focus anyway. And then everything just, it gets pushed out. Okay, well, nice thing now is that things can be facilitated. I can bring questions to you all. And we can talk about things, which we will. So those things are to come. But I just want to put forth to the board that is what we need to do. And and I would like to say we need to do it quickly, but that's just nonsense. It's not going to happen quickly. But we do need to start with it. And we need to come up with it. This was just making points about what the purpose is, but I think everyone knows. Again, I'm kind of hearing here and there. I couldn't quite decide what order of things and how everything is tied together. But putting into your mind this is for the members of the board to just have it in the back of your mind as we leave today and we go forward. The board needs to adopt and be very clear, according to Hillsdale, the Carver model that they guide us to. It is about the ends policies, and ends policies are things going to be related to, clearly defined, so that it can be said and understood very clearly. Things such as, who does the school serve? What benefits are we ultimately trying to deliver to our students? And at what level of quality and distinction? These are the things that are going to be putting forth to you guys, and that we're going to work together on. Yeah, again, apologies for the order, but this was the board that I was talking about. And this speaks to things and efforts such as One Campus. And I know you've heard me in our time on the board, I would always say that we need to be able to tell our story so that it's understandable before you can frankly go out and raise money to buy a big building and make it a school. Okay. Part of the story that you have to put in front of people are the reasons for doing things. They can be practical reasons, they can be big picture reasons. This one speaks to practical reasons. This is how our principals and our academic leadership have over the years been trying to wrestle with and work with to deliver the standard of our Hillsdale education to our students at the West Campus. This is difficult. And we should work together on the things that need to get done, and there are a lot of things, to then enable us to put ourselves in the strongest position possible to have success with one campus so that this can change. But I thought it was a good visual because it certainly was impactful for me when I saw that. Also, along the lines of things that are complicated and I'm asking for the board to put it in your minds to think about that, because coming to a set of ends policies, it's not that clear. These things won't jump out. There's no just like, here's a number and let's go hit it. It's not going to be that easy. And one of the things that has been long time in discussion is, well, enrollment. So let's just talk about that for a minute, because it has been talked about, it's been whispered about, like people are in all sorts of different degrees of uncomfortable or uncertainty. So we're gonna start by getting it out there. And what is out there, and everyone can think about it and kick it around and figure out what to do. Firstly, where are we today? This is where we are today, which is great. We did a count, there's a second count, there's the second week count, there's a third week count. This is what's going through the DPI for our per student funding. So we're 530 pupils, great. Our funding, according to the last budget that was approved, everything's on track. Okay, one thing to note. So yes, we have things such as 8th grade going to 9th grade. That has been talked about, mentioned, and we'll get to that in a second. But the buildings themselves are at capacity. So we've got this push and the pull. We desire to have greater enrollments. We want a continued steady flow. We want to grow. But at the present moment, the practical reality is that we're in buildings that are ostensibly full. Maybe a little bit less so at East. Maybe there are things that can be optimized at the margin. West is, well, as you saw from the previous chart, yeah, there's a lot to juggle, and it's complicated. But on the other side of that, this has been out there. So this is an analysis of the attrition that has happened over the years. I haven't vetted these numbers in excruciating detail, but sometimes order of magnitude is more important than actually the specificity and making sure that you're exactly precise. The point is, from the year that the school started and the first families that were involved, and going on to today, and over the years, a lot of people have made different decisions, and they've went to other places. And as Mr. Zondo was highlighting, that's in a lot of respects difficult and sad and unfortunate. But these are the dynamics that you as the board, in deciding what the end policies will be, you're going to need to balance, or you're going to need to figure out what are the points of balance and what are we trying to achieve. I can put up, in my mind, I can see things as I've talked to the staff and, heard their passion for the rigor of this curriculum and what it provides for the students and how it prepares them for life, how to be able to think, how to be able to contest things, speak clearly, articulate arguments, and it's not too hard for me to see that as you go into the later years and subjects get more complicated, and the degree of thought that goes into constructing things like arguments, that needs a lot of support from the teachers. That involves time. And it's not too hard to believe that can be done better with a class of, say, maybe 15 as opposed to a class of 50. I don't know. I don't have the answer to what that is, but these are things that you're going to have to weigh. Because if we're seeking to deliver that to 15, in grade 12, and we're starting from kindergarten with 60 or 70 or so in a class, well, you know that math. But if we're ultimately trying to achieve 50 in the graduating class, then that's also different. Then you can't have that same math going along every single year. And so we're gonna need to think about, it's not just about the starting number and the end number. We're gonna need to think about what happens along every step of the way. And there's a lot of different things going on every step of the way. So I want to just put that in your mind and also put it out there. And all these things, the purpose of putting out there is that so everyone has them and we can all talk about them. And if anyone has a question, like throw out the question and let's figure it out together. So one thing as I'm going to moving through this, I'm trying to keep it on pace, but you know, lots of discussion, lots of concern about Hillsdale. This is a little bit throwing out a nod to it and just underlying that, you know, as far as I know, your directive to me is that we absolutely, the Hillsdale curriculum and everything else is foundational to what we're doing. In a lot of my discussions this last week and a half, a lot of the faculty would bring up references to Aristotle and Socrates, and it was really fun. I hadn't really thought about those things in a long time. And this is a little bit of a nod to Dr. Katie O'Toole at Hillsdale. Whenever I had the opportunity to speak with her, there's always something that I feel like I've learned new. And I know that one of her favorites is Aristotle, the Nicomachean Ethics books, and there are these things. And this is kind of speaking to mission, but then also method. Because I think there might have been a little bit of apprehension or maybe ignorant bias, and look, these are uncomfortable times, that if we're revisiting things or we're questioning things or we're asking how well things are going, that it's an affront to the mission. And that's absolutely not the case. And actually, it's absolutely foundational to the concept of classical that you do revisit what you are doing. Because there is mission, and that stays put. And there is method, and you always have to re-examine method to make sure that you're on point with mission. Okay? That is foundational of classical thinking, and every notable classical philosopher there is. Like I said, so mission is steady, but our methods, those deserve to be reviewed and to be thought about, and to just make sure that we are serving our mission well. So again, my objective under your directive, under the board's directive, is that we're going to figure this out together. We will circle back. There are concerns, there are broad concerns, there are questions, there is uncertainty. Okay, we're going to circle back to them as a community, and we're going to ask questions, and we're going to discuss things. And then we're going to make sure that we're doing things well. And that's very much in line with Hillsdale's guidance, so that no one is, if anyone had any concerns. One of the things, as far as actual tangible and practical items, the head principal search. So, in conversation with the staff, as they asked, and I said our objective would be to talk about it here in this board meeting, and ultimately then proceed with at least starting the process. I had sent an email to Hillsdale sometime last week. I just actually heard back a little bit before this meeting from Benjamin Payne, and he had said that the development of head principal description and target is something that we work together with the board, as in he and the board, and so he kind of sort of deferred it to you, which makes sense. So as such, I'll say that that is coming, and when you work with that with Hillsdale, then let's coordinate that, because since this is going to be under your purview and not mine, which is great, I will ask. I would recommend that we approach it this way: that work with Hillsdale, please, obviously, so that we, as a collective, understand how it's all supposed to work and what they would like. I would like to propose a process of how we do this and how head principal candidates are vetted. I understand that as part of the executive director role, yes, ultimately, I have the authority to hire, but that doesn't mean that that's how I want that to go. I would like to suggest a process in which how we do this, that we're going to have two committees. One is going to be from parents and one is going to be from the faculty. And the way that they'll be selected, I would reach out to the respective groups and I would request letters of interest as to why it's interesting for them to be a part of these efforts. And the effort is the evaluation of our head principal candidates. The parent committee would be comprised of interested parents that are going to be tasked with creating a question and answer style forum that the principal candidates will have to be subject to. And they have to come in, they have to meet the community, they have to answer questions that are asked, and then and ultimately the committee will then aggregate the responses, kind of observe how the candidates do, and provide their feedback, and that will come and then that will be their recommendation to the board. And then similarly, a faculty committee that will be tasked with creating and architecting a roundtable Socratic, we are classical, a roundtable Socratic discussion. They will come up with questions. I would guide that the questions that will be up for discussion are things that the faculty believe that in answering it, the candidate will reveal how they really think about things in different situations. And then that discussion would happen then in front of the entire faculty. And then the committee would be tasked with assembling the feedback and then make an ultimate recommendation as well. And then, so then you all as a board will have recommendations from the parent community, you will have recommendations for the faculty, you will have started with what Hillsdale would like us to do. And then I think we will have at least done things in a way in which everyone had input on their respective perspective. So again, I just offer that. I would like to see that happen. So I just put that forth for your consideration as you think about how you're going to proceed. So, closing note. So again, it was never intended that I was coming in with a item by item plan, because we need to create that together. I believe a big reason why it was suggested to me to sign on for this is that I think you guys know that I am comfortable operating in uncertainty, and I am comfortable operating with imperfect information. In operating under unknown circumstances and imperfect information, you do try to figure out what you're doing wrong. And the only way I know how to do it is spend a lot of time asking questions, spend a lot of time listening, because, well, I don't know a lot of things. And, to know anything, you generally ask. See what people say. Gotten a good amount of time to hear a lot of things, and I'm going to look forward to then shifting focus to getting to know and hearing a lot of thoughts from the parent community. And then that will ultimately get incorporated in things that we're going to do. I'll tell you what I know now. I will state that I know this to you on the board. And there's a couple things I would like for you to keep in mind as we think about how we're going to proceed and think about ends policy and what we have to do today, so on and so forth. So a few things that I know. And some of this speaks to the whole idea of the concerns around Hillsdale. Again, we are foundational in that that's how we do things. That's how we have done things. That's how we're going to do things. That being said, as you're defining what we are and who we serve and how we do it, how we're supposed to do it. There's never been any, this is one thing that came to mind recently. The whole hope is that this organization will stand the test of time. It's critically important that that happens. The United States of America does not need another school where the priority is not character, and it doesn't need something that has no moral grounding. And we don't need another school that, just uses tablets. It doesn't actually teach. We don't need those things. Okay? This school needs to be able to stand the test of time, because our children ultimately need peers. You cannot just manufacture that. You can't just manufacture the community for them. So they need that. Now, here's the thing as I was thinking about. And when the thought came to me, and I tried really hard to find something that was different. But when I thought about it, there's never been an organization that's ever stood the test of time that defined itself by some organization. So yes, Hillsdale is absolutely critical to how we do things and how we operate. But as far as what we are, who we serve, organizations that stand the test of time, that have their core group, that have their fanatics, and the equivalent of every person that wants to go and jump and get in line across, around the corner when a new iPhone comes out, we have that group for us. So just ask that you keep that in mind. I think that was a notable point that's come in as I've been talking to people and learning. Next point. There is just incredible passion. Passion comes in all forms. It can be adversarial. It can be just the best of friends. All forms. The opposite, if there isn't passion, then you have apathy, and apathy just leads to death and no progress ever gets made. So, let us always choose passion, regardless of how hard, how much anyone's gonna yell at you, and whatever it may be. So, I will be honest, I wasn't quite sure about this not too long ago. There was, frankly, doubt in my mind. I just didn't know. There wasn't any ability to prepare for this. Just trying to jump in, and some things happen along the course, and you just don't know. But I know now. I know. Not necessarily anyone else does, and I know you don't necessarily know. But after spending time asking a lot of questions, doing a lot of listening, I know this. LCCA will continue to thrive. Unequivocally. I have no doubt. So I ask you to consider that. And then we're going to get back to work. And together.
Thank you very much, John. Randy, would you like to comment? Still there, Randy?
Yeah, I'm still there. No, I have no additional comment. I think John said it well.
Okay. I just don't want to jump in line in front of you. Yeah. Thank you, John, and your leadership style is to be commended, and
I don't know about that, but it's a little different.
you've done a lot in just a few days, and we'll be looking forward to the next few days and the few days after that, and what we will be able to accomplish. So thank you for your report. We will move on next to new business. There was a liability insurance review that was done. I believe this is you, Scott?
Yeah, so my paying job.
You have one?
Yes, my paying job is commercial insurance brokerage. So I was just asked to take a look at our current policy. Looks like, when it was initially set up, it was probably set up when the school was first implemented, and so this is really common in the insurance space. When a policy is initially placed, it's placed to serve at that point in time, and maybe the duration of time just beyond that. And so one of my colleagues reviewed and just there's nothing materially concerning with the policy, but it would be appropriate with our insurance brokerage, which is not me, not my company, just reviewing. And so I think it would be appropriate to take a look at that policy as part of what we need to do at some point in the near future. It's not an urgent need, but was something that I need to take a look at. And if there's an opportunity there to just revisit the terms, make sure they fit where we're at organizationally, and moving forward. Of note, John and the rest of the board, there are some requirements in our charter agreement with Waukesha County on minimums, and those appear to be satisfied, so that's not an issue, but the minimum doesn't necessarily mean that's where we should be at as we move forward. There's some new factors with, security guards and things like that that aren't contemplated in our current policy. We do contract with the security guards that they would indemnify us for some of those risks, but it's something that we should have to reevaluate at some point.
Okay.
So what's the process then for that? Do we want to delegate to?
I would think it would fall under it's a business item, so the business office and John can work together to review at some point. Again, it's not a super high priority, but just something that we observed.
I will add it to the to-do list too, just so it stays on the radar.
Okay. Okay, moving on to new business, the board calendar approval item. We had gone over this at our last meeting, but did not take the vote on it to give everyone time to review, which assuming everyone has. So would there be a motion to consider this at this time?
So moved.
Second? Second. Okay. Discussion? That's pretty straightforward.
I didn't see that there was any real deviation from the patterns that we've established.
There was a couple things that I added on there. I don't remember, I don't think I took anything off, but it was related to the security plan, making sure we just have a step in there that we're reviewing that. And then also the, what was the other one? I can't remember offhand. There was one, the mold testing. Yeah, air quality testing was the other one.
And then
so those were the items I added.
The other one that you added, Randy, I believe is just enrollment updates or trends on a biannual basis.
Yeah. It was a couple months ago. Now I remember that. I think too, this is something that maybe just with some changes and everything that we maybe even want to review before the next year again. But I think for now, to give John a working document, it's not the highest priority item. I think this way we just kind of make sure nothing falls through the cracks, especially with John just being 12 days into the job.
All right, sounds good. Okay, are we ready to vote? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. So moved. Okay. And the next item is an election of board officer? No. The faculty. Yeah, sorry. I'm seeing the eye doctor soon. Maybe that will help me with all the names and everything too. So the faculty compensation. You want to jump in?
Yeah. So this is something I have. I know I have unilateral authority to make a decision, but just because I have that doesn't mean that I desire to work that way. So, in the vein of comfortable working in situations of imperfect information, one of the things, none of any of this is about my personal desires for anything. However, I've always have had an interest in teacher compensation, and it's always been just one of those mysteries. It's an amazing thing, teachers that choose to do this and invest all that energy and effort and everything into students. And when it comes to, and no one does it, clearly. But that doesn't mean that we need to be okay with just letting it be what it is. So I wanted to put it out there just as something that to get your, if it's only a blessing because that's how procedure is supposed to work. If you can vote on it, then great. Because I don't have a perfect solution and I don't have a comprehensive. But we have the ability to maneuver within the budget to at least start. And I'd like to start at the lowest tier. Currently, as it stands, and it's been this way for a while, our lowest tier from a teacher compensation standpoint is $42,000, and it has an annual rate. School districts, just by way of example, school districts such as the Commonwealth or Meringue, they institute tends at a minimum of $50,000. And so other school districts have been making moves. And I know, relative to other school districts has not been necessarily our method of operating. Charter schools in general across Wisconsin are generally lower. But again, just because it can be doesn't mean that that's the right thing. Or frankly, really, but it's really about, is it the best thing? In the interest of our students, again, this is an organization that will stand the test of time. That means it's going to keep on going for a long time. And in order for that to happen, you have to be able to attract talent, and particularly young talent, to start. And you have to have them want to start. And again, no one does this for money. It's always mission driven, it's passion driven. So that's where they begin. But at least let's make it so that we can potentially not have them have the stresses that can get in the way. Again, this board is comprised a lot about markets people. Fed chairman, who's always targeting 2% ideal inflation, and we all know that is nonsense. So I think as far as what I'm trying to do, so because I believe I can do this and be budget neutral. I'm pretty confident I don't have to move anything with the budget, so I can operate within it. But what I'm looking at as a beginning is that across the board for the staff that I want to just begin with, and again, that's not for any lack of wanting to do something for everyone, but what I want to begin with, the quantum that we're dealing with. So on an annual rate basis, I'm seeking a blessing that can move it up as much as, not to say that I will go to that degree, but move it as much as an additional $60,000 a year in rate, and that includes FICA and such. But the actual cash usage for now until the rest of the fiscal year will be at most an increase of just on the salary and the benefit side, $40,000, and that's got some buffer. But again, it will be budget neutral. But at least I wanted to put it out there, just if any thoughts, concerns came up that come up in your mind that I didn't already think of.
How many, what's the number?
10 to 14.
Impact.
14 employees.
Teachers.
John, is that something that's sustainable beyond this current year? What does that look
Yes,
like
I
in
believe
future
so.
years?
I believe so.
How do we make that work? And I guess I want to see more.
So
More
because
detailed information.
so again, because I can keep it neutral to today. And as far as we operate, we're operating at a surplus to begin with, and we've been building collectively cash on balance sheet. And this goes again one of the things, we'll delve into this some more because I couldn't get a handle on everything fast enough. One of the things like how these meetings have gone and presentation of financials. There, as we always talk about budget and give some of these financials and things are kind of organized so that it doesn't necessarily like mean anything. We're looking at cash amounts in any given month, but there's no cash flow statement, so we can't tell like, what is really cash, like real cash usage for the requirements that we need on for any particular like, duration. Like if you go and you restructure a company, you go in there and you first ask, okay, over 13 weeks, like what happens? And then eventually you get the situation over 1 year, like how does that work? And we always end up, and we've always ended up in a situation where we'll report a net cash amount at the end of the month, but no one, it's not very clear as to what's the next cash need for the next week and the next month and so on and so forth. But after I dug into that, and enough to be comfortable with this, is as far as I can tell, we should actually, again, accrue, so by fiscal year end, after all obligations and cash needs are satisfied, we will build cash reserve, and we will go from approximately ending last fiscal year, after everything has been paid for, that had been spent, $1 million in cash. And then we will then subsequently accrue at the end of this fiscal year another $300,000 at least, and we'll be in 1.3 million or so. So when I look at that, and when I look at, I can look at the existing budget that was already approved, the board had approved previously, and I know everything's on kind of an interim basis, and we have to do final approvals and so on and so forth. But if I look at those things, I can keep that budget neutral, and we're operating as if we're out of surplus. So while it's not perfect information, I know it's sustainable.
I still have some reservations.
I'm not following this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I understand what you're saying. I just have reservations about the long-term success, our ability to maintain that in the future. Funding from the state, I'm not an expert in that by any means, but you know, that's somewhat fixed, and so I don't want to put ourselves, make a commitment today that somehow binds us in the future that something's not sustainable based on somewhat limited information. Sure. The second question I have is, this is targeted toward our newest teachers, which is great. I think the idea behind this, you know, is commendable. But what the message that sent to our more tenured folks, if we're not able to accommodate some kind of consistent increase across the board. That's where I'm at to start.
Yeah.
So.
It's a fair point. Again, that's one of the things that kind of came to mind, and again, I wasn't in a position to do something comprehensive. And I just wanted to I was looking to say something.
I mean, I like the challenge of the traditional thought, but I think you know, we need a more concrete plan that is equitable across our entire population. If there's, you know, some opportunity there, I think that's great. But I also need to understand the long-term sustainability of that before I can go to approve something.
Let me just ask for clarification. So there's surplus in our operating budget.
Yes.
So we're not getting rid of something. We're not taking away from something, per se. And
when I looked at things, there's budgetary items that just aren't needed.
yeah, excess. Okay. I mean,
They're
generally,
not going to be needed.
I mean, generally speaking, I'd be more in favor of increasing staff salary than most other things. I mean, we need a roof so we don't get wet when it rains, and we need to pay teachers well. So, I mean, you know, and then everything else kind of comes after that from my perspective. So,
I
generally in favor.
agree. I agree with the purchasing consensus here, and this all, you've got this in your head, but I wasn't following. I wonder if there's a document
Maybe,
that you
yeah,
can put
next
together
month,
for
next
us.
month, bring that together maybe with a
Cash flow
couple
statement.
options, you know, or just, yeah, or visual.
Yeah, I frankly, I wasn't quite sure as to the boundaries as to how that's supposed to work. I was going to put kind of numbers and have that kind of wrapping.
I think if he's
We'll
asking,
talk about part of his report.
Yeah,
I think if he's asking though for like, is it worth putting effort into discovery and firming up those numbers? I'd say yes.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
And I would also, the other component I would consider, this is ultimately your discretion, but I think would be relevant, is like merit of the, and I don't know how that's been handled in the past necessarily,
Right.
but high performing.
Yeah, that's actually,
versus
yeah, that's been on the list I've asked.
Yeah.
I've asked Principal Hagedorn, I've asked Dr. Wozniak, Ms. Joy, how that has been thought about. And it seems like just as a general matter in education, that it isn't. Which I guess can't say it's surprising, just disappointing. But I think we can do something about it.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's a good objective, but.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
Just,
Go ahead, Randy.
I was gonna add one thing. I mean, I think, we've talked, we've heard parents tonight and faculty and others throughout this whole process talk about this school doesn't run without the faculty. That is the key to success. So this is a general comment, but I think looking at that as an investment rather than an expense, I think makes a lot of sense because our dollar should be allocated to where our priorities are and the teachers are the priority.